side, ref!
Welcome back to another episode of In From The Side. I've got my co-host with me, Matthew Rhodes.
G'day,
Matthew,
mate.
good to see you.
Yeah, thanks, bud. Good to be seen.
Yeah, good to have you back, bud. We haven't done this in a couple of weeks, but we are back with another show. Over the last couple of weeks, we have been selecting our fantasy sides from South Africa, New Zealand, and Australia. Got a lot of good response, a lot of banter, a lot of debate. Matt got a lot of stick for some of his selections he's made.
Some of my outside selections, especially when talking about the Kiwis. For instance, I went with Geordie Barrett in my squad, remembering, of course, this is a fantasy squad, and all the Mananus lovers out there absolutely ripped into me. And fair play, they all have their justified rights to do so.
Yeah, maybe they do, but at the end of the day, it's just an opinion, and everybody has got their own.
I love the banter. Keep bringing it, and we're definitely going to give more banter, I think, in our selection this week. Who are we picking this week?
We are picking the greatest England side of the professional era. So of the last 30 years, we try to separate the amateur and the professional era. We think it's two distinct separate eras. We're looking at the pros only, no amateurs.
Yeah, so In From The Side, and these are our selections. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it, Matt. Who did you pick in the back three?
So the back three for me was relatively easy at 15. I went with Jason Robertson.
Yeah.
I think he is standout. I mean, the only thing that I'm slightly sorry for is the fact that he played rugby league for as long as he did. 302 appearances for Wigan is outstanding. If he had maybe come across to Union a bit earlier, the stats would have been amazing and unbelievable. But 51 appearances and 140 points, for me, he was outstanding. And then I went Rory Underwood at the one wing. And again, everyone can talk about Rory Underwood, England's leading try scorer. 85 appearances, 210 points, most international scores with 49, 5 in one match as well, which I think was outstanding. And I know that he was only at the back end, so 95 and 96 within the professional era, but 8 tries in 1995 and 1 in 1996, 10 tries in those 2 seasons.
It does qualify.
It does qualify, and it warrants, I think, and then obviously 3... I think it was 3 World Cups and 1 Lions tour as well.
Yeah.
So for me, Rory Underwood, and then somewhat controversial, I went Ben Cohen.
I don't think that's controversial at all.
So I loved Ben Cohen when he played. He was strong, physical, dominant, quick. 57 appearances, 155 points as well. And so for me, that's my back three. Who'd you go with?
I think it's fair to say that when we pick these players, we look at them at the peak of their careers, like when they were really on top form. So I differed slightly. My wings, I picked Jason Robinson on the one wing.
Because you played wing.
Yeah, he played wing in the World Cup final, scored that famous try.
Yeah.
So he did play wing quite often for England, and I picked Ben Cohen on the other wing.
Fair.
I did not pick Rory Underwood, specifically for those reasons you said. He played the majority of his career in the amateur era.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal. Still the leading try scorer in English rugby. I'm a big fan. He's from our part of the world. He played for the Bedford Blues for a couple of seasons.
Yep.
So, loved Rory Underwood, but I just didn't feel like he played his best rugby in the professional era.
Yeah.
So I went with Robinson and Cohen, and then at fullback World Cup winner Josh Lucy.
Fair enough.
I liked him. He was a dynamic runner with the ball,
Power.
great counter-attacking fullback, chased the ball whenever they played their kicking game. He was always the first guy to put pressure on the opposition. And he was solid under the high ball. There's a couple of guys, Ian Balshaw, Mike Brown, at fullback. They were all in with a shout. Robinson, of course, played fullback quite often. On the wing, I looked at Dan Luger, Chris Ashton, Johnny May and Anthony Watson. I think they're all in with a shout, but I liked Robinson and Cohen.
Good shouts. I mean, Mark Cueto, 20 tries. Anthony Watson, 23 tries as well. You could make an argument.
Well, if you ask some English fans, Cueto scored 21 tries. But Dani Rousseau denied him famously in that final.
Yeah, well, we move over that for all the English fans.
Yeah, it wasn't a try.
We won't come back to that.
Interesting, strong back three.
Dan Luger, 24 tries as well. Really.
Yeah, and he was a British Lion in 2001. Great player.
Great player. So some excellent wings. really decent. I thought Ben Cohen would have been an outside bet, but you went for him as well.
I don't think so. No, Northampton boy, just up the road. He was one of the first big, strong. Like we had Dean Hall in the same era. You know?
He reminded me a lot of Dean Hall.
Very similar.
Yeah,
big, strong,
power.
powerful wing, but he had pace as well. Remember the tries he scored in Australia just before the World Cup in 2003. They toured down under. He scored some pearlers, mate. He was a fantastic player.
Josh Lucy at the back there as well. Also a pretty big boy,
Big
strong fella. So you've gone with strength within your three.
Yeah.
Fair play. Who'd you go with at the centre pairing?
Now, my centre pairing, I think, is controversial, right? So I did go for someone that spanned the amateur and the pro era.
Yeah.
At outside centre, I picked Jeremy Guscott.
Okay.
For me, he was pure class. Probably still the greatest centre England's ever produced. That combination with Carling in the early 90s secured them 3 Grand Slams, I think, in the first half of the 90s. So British Lion on 3 tours. Who will ever forget the drop kick against us? That won in the series in 97. It still pains me to think about it. But
That was the second game, eh? Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the second test at Durban. So Jeremy Guscott for me was a no-brainer. And at inside centre, this is the controversial one. I went with Owen Farrell.
Okay.
So I had to make space for him. Look, he's one of those players that South Africans love to hate. I don't think South Africans are big fans of Owen Farrell's, but if you take opinion out of it and you just look at the stats, you know, over 100 tests, top point scorer for England. I couldn't make space for him at fly-off because we're going to get to fly-off, and I think we picked the same guy, but had to pick Farrell. Yeah. I had to make space for him, and he's played 12 quite often, and I quite like him at 12. And I think the current England team are poorer for not having him in that squad. So
on that point, then that's a nice little sort of tangent we can go into. If he was available now to play, would you pick him over Ollie Lawrence or Henry Slade?
I'd pick him over Slade any day of the week. Yeah.
Because Ollie Lawrence is standing up at the moment. He's playing well.
We're going to talk about the Six Nations in the second show.
Correct.
I'd even pick him at fly-off currently because I think England's in trouble at fly-off.
Yeah.
But versatile player. He's a leader. He's a fierce competitor. Never takes a step back. Maybe a question mark around his tackling technique that we know, but I think he's a great player.
I think it's justified. I don't think it's his best position, but I think if you're making a fantasy, to stress again, fantasy team, you know, with all his points, his background, his strength, the fact that he's played at centre, it warrants. Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of guys that missed out. Mike Tyndall, Mike Catt at inside centre, Manu Tuilangi, Will Greenwood. They all could have been in with a shot, but that's who I went with.
Yeah, fair enough. Will Carling missed out as well.
Yeah, who did you pick?
So I went with Jeremy Guscott for all the reasons you said as well.
Yeah.
65 appearances, 143 points, 3 Lions tours. And again, I made a mental note about the drop kick against South Africa. But
class, man.
I paired him with Will Greenwood.
Yeah, Greenwood. I mean, he was in my sort of top picks.
Yeah.
Fantastic player.
Well, in terms of return points scored, 55 appearances, 155 points. That's better than Jeremy Guscott. And also 3 Lions tours, 31 tries as well.
He had a knack of scoring against the box as well. Yeah. Like every year we played them at Twickenham and in the World Cup in 2003, he scored against us. So
very good rugby brain. Like in other shows, I've said I like to pick players who play with a strategic sort of focus throughout their actions and what they do. And you can see he was a thinking man's player. And even now, after his reviews on England games and the stuff that he posts and says online, I think a lot of it is valid, a lot of it is well thought out.
Fair.
It's fair, and he's also got, again, the credibility to back up what he's saying.
Yeah.
So, but again, some of those, a bit for me like Jean de Villiers, where he played at centre and could read the game so well. There were quite a few, I think, if I'm not mistaken, where he intercepted the tries
he did.
to run in. And he could just read the game, especially from a defensive pattern. He could read it where, you know, running into those interceptions was great. So, yeah, that was my pairing.
No, great pairing. Fun fact about Will Greenwood, he made his debut for the Lions before he made his debut for England.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah,
he got picked when he hadn't been selected, and then he got his first run out for England at Twickenham when he got back.
Yeah, unbelievable. Great player. Okay, halfback pairing.
So you mentioned it, not a tough one, but tough when you're considering who you've picked at centre. But for me, I went Johnny Wilkinson at 10 and Matt Dawson at 9.
Yeah, I went the same.
Yeah.
Same halfback pairing, World Cup winning halfback pairing. Matt Dawson, I don't think always gets the credit that he deserves, but I had some very vivid memories of him. Another one was when he played for the Lions in the first test at Newlands in 97. He dummied Gary Teichmann. I think Gary's still buying that dummy. He's still running, chasing that dummy. He just dummied him, scored in the corner, and that set them up for a famous win. And again, the dummy he did in the World Cup final to set Wilkinson up.
Yeah.
Like, people forget that. Like, he broke around the fringe of a ruck to gain 10 meters, and it put Wilkinson in a prime spot to kick that drop goal. So he could read the game really well. Great service, fantastic player. Johnny Wilkinson, I don't know what else there is to say about him. He's the greatest English rugby player of all time, I think. That's my opinion.
That's fair to say. I mean, and again, we're probably going to get some naysayers, but he was just the complete player.
And the ultimate pro, like the work he put in. I remember watching a video of his story while he was still playing. He trained on Christmas Day. He would, before they have Christmas lunch with the family, he'd go to the field, go and kick, practice his kicking. Unbelievable pro.
Yeah, his kicking was outstanding, but his all-round game was great. He could run well with the ball. He wasn't the quickest, but he still could attack the line.
But he played to his strengths. Like, his distribution skills were good.
So good.
And his defensively, he was unbelievable.
His pass was outstanding.
Yeah.
And both sides as well, left and right. But again, he was known for his kicking. Johnny didn't miss many, but some of those tackles he would put in at 10 in defence, I remember some of them huge
on big guys as well.
On big guys, and so that's what you want from your from your fly half, is someone to stand up, someone who can read the game, put you into positions, open the gaps, have the vision, obviously support you with good kicking ability, both out of hand and off the deck. But when push comes to shove, stand your ground and make some tackles. And he made some huge tackles.
He did, absolutely. And I've made this comment before, and I'll say it again. If Johnny Wilkinson wasn't fit in 2003, I don't think England would have won the World Cup. He had that significant of an impact on that team. If you watch that semi-final against France, he scored all the points. He kicked penalties. I think he kicked 2 or 3 drops on the day under pressure. He completely smothered France. They couldn't get in the game. And then again, that World Cup final, we spoke about Larkham's drop goal. We know about Stransky's drop goal. We know about Dan Carter's drop goal in 2015. None of them have done it with the wrong foot. Yeah. Like, Johnny kicked a match-winning drop goal in extra time with his right foot. It's just insane, the talent.
Yeah, you might get some pushback on that particular statement, just given the strength and depth that they had across that team. I mean, he had some absolute warriors.
That's just my opinion.
It's just your opinion, but the keyboard warriors out there might be smashing them right now.
You know what? He scored some significant points. If you look at that final, and I watched that final the other day again, like in extra time, he banged one over from within his own half. I don't think they had the backup in that team to kick those types of penalties under pressure. He played a significant role in winning that World Cup. But okay. We'll park it there. Wilkinson and Matt Dawson, great duo. Okay, Matt, so that's the back line done and dusted. Loose forwards, what does your team look like?
So my loosies, I went with Lawrence Delalio at 8, Neil Back at open side, and then I went Richard Hill.
Okay, World Cup winning trio.
And you know what? I looked at so many other options maybe, but again, the trio played well together. Delalio, 85 points, 85 appearances, powerful player, naturally gifted, natural leader as well, 22 tests as captain. And again, he was a key part of that golden era, as were the other two. Neil Back, 3 Lions tours, 16 tries, also captain 4 times. I think he was arguably like England's best fetcher. So, and they needed that for that particular tournament as well. And he was outstanding. He was super skilled, and I think sometimes Richard Hill got overlooked for Neil Back at times as well,
which is odd. Yeah, because if you speak to any ex-player, they'll say Richard Hill is like top of the pile. Yeah. Top of the pile.
He would probably be first on the list, and then sometimes he was losing his place. But 71 appearances, 60 points. I looked. There were some outstanding names: Chris Robshaw, James Hastill, Lewis Moody, Joe Worsley, Tom Croft, Sam Underhill, Stefan Armitage, like some outstanding names in that kind of particular bracket of players. But for me, that trio played so well together they deserve this.
Yeah, you're making me second guess my trio because
really?
I didn't pick Neil back. I went Delalio. He's a no-brainer. I think when you talk about the greatest number 8s in the history of the game, you talk about a Kieran Reid, Zinzan, Dwayne Vermeulen, these guys, Buck Shelford. Delalio is part of that conversation.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen a number 8 pick up and drive from the back of a scrum like he did. He did it against Wales a couple of times. I think that's the highlight we'll show. Just pick up the ball from the back of the scrum, run them 10 meters with 3 people on his back, and he scores. He was unbelievably strong. Fantastic player. I picked Richard Hill on the one side of the scrum. For all the reasons that you said, I think he's just a talisman of English rugby.
Yeah.
Fantastic player, strong ball carrier. Could also, fetch the ball and create turnovers, maybe not as well as back. But then at 7, this is a controversial one. I went with Courtney Laws.
Okay.
Over 100 tests, and I think now that he's retired, it might take a season or two for people to look back at his career and look at what he's achieved. Like, he played for England for 14 years, over 100 tests. He's won the Grand Slam. He's won the Premiership. His consistency over the last couple of years in an England side that's been struggling, he's been the one standout player, and he's been the one world-class player. We spoke about it over the weekend. Like, England's got no world-class players. Courtney Laws, for me, was a world-class player. And I don't know how well he would go in that trio, taking back out of it, because they played so well together, but I went man for man.
That's fair enough.
I had to make place for Courtney Laws because he played well at flank. I know he played lock as well.
Yeah.
But as a loose forward, he's a Peter Steff type player. He could play both, so he gives you a bit of versatility as well. But yeah, I went Delalio, Courtney Laws, Richard Hill.
Fair enough. All outstanding players in their own right.
I mean, again, loose forward, as with any country, it's so difficult to pick because at number 8 you had Billy Vunipola. I looked at Lewis Moody, James Haskell, Ben Curry, Tom Curry, Joe Worsley, Sam Underhill, all of these players you mentioned.
Nick Easter at 8 as well.
Yeah, they were all Martin Corey, ex-England captain as well. Fantastic players. But yeah, that's my trio. Let's see what you say in the comment section.
It'll be good to hear the comments. The loose trio always is the one that I think elicits so much fire from the Ninja Warriors, the keyboard ninjas, because everyone's got an opinion. Everyone likes the flavor of a particular type of flanker or another. And there's so many. I think it's because there's open side and there's blind side.
Yeah.
There's so many that have proven themselves over the years and stand up. But yeah, fair enough. Who'd you go in the locks?
Locks, I think, is less of a surprise. I went Martin Johnson. He's also the captain of this team.
Yeah.
And Maro Itoje.
Okay. So my flip backwards and forwards was with... so Martin Johnson wrote his name, and he's my captain as well.
Yeah.
And it was, again, Maro Itoje, or in the end I went Simon Shaw.
Interesting. We're going to get to the bench.
Yeah.
Simon Shaw's an interesting one because he had an up and down career with England, but he was always on a Lions tour. Like, he toured from 97 to 2009. I think he went on 4 Lions tours. He would always be picked for the Lions and then play in the tests and play fantastically well. Yeah. Why he never got consistently picked for England is beyond me.
But 71 tests.
He wasn't. Yeah, but he should have played like 100, given the length of his career.
Yeah, 71 tests, 3 Lions tours, like you say. Simon Shaw always reminded me, like, if he was born 600, 700, 800 years before, he'd be standing on some battlefield with about 2 massive axes, and people would be
with his foot on someone's skull or something.
He'd have a chain of skulls around him. He just looked like someone you don't want to
he's a mean bastard. He is.
So,
but awesome player.
Yeah, fantastic player. And that's why I picked him there. Maro, but again, Maro, it was for me, but I went Simon Shaw.
Yeah, maybe I got blinded around the hype around Itoje. I'm always very vocal when England plays South Africa because everyone talks about Eben versus Maro, and Eben always seems to win that battle relatively easily. But again, we've seen in the Six Nations now, he's captain, he's stepping up, he's leading from the front, and they're getting, they got a good win on the weekend.
Surprising wins.
He is a great player.
Yeah.
Let's give the devil his due.
Of no doubt.
But like Farrell, we love to hate him. It's like one of those players where if you ask a South African, we don't rate Itoje. But if you take all the bias and emotion out of it, he is a fantastic player. And he deserves a spot in the team.
Personally, I don't hate him. I don't dislike him as a player. I think he's actually a really great player. A bit like Courtney Laws in that sense, where He just runs hard. You can always see on the field he's giving his utmost. Sometimes he oversteps. Sometimes he can, he can get a card his way. But generally speaking, he's pretty solid.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he dominates at the set piece, wins his kickoffs, wins the lineouts, and defensively, I think he's really strong. But let's talk about Martin Johnson quickly. Just the giant of the game. Yeah. I made the comment to say Johnny Wilkinson's the greatest England player of all time. I think Martin Johnson might have something to say about it. Lions captain on 2 tours, the first player to captain 2 Lions tours back to back.
39 appearances as captain for England.
Yeah. So first England player to captain the Lions back to back. No, he was awesome.
Yeah.
Leicester Tigers legend.
Yeah.
World Cup winning captain.
An enforcer as well. Like you see some of those videos, the behind the scenes. He didn't take any shit.
There was a test that England played against New Zealand in 2003 before the World Cup. They went down under and they played them in Wellington. They won 15-13. They got 2 yellow cards in that game. And for that 10, 20-minute period, Martin Johnson was just leading from the front. Like, he pulled that team through that game. He was making every tackle. He was taking every ball, hitting the rucks. He was unbelievable. That's the one game I vividly remember him, like, totally dominating.
Are England lucky to have him as their captain? Was there a possibility that he could have played for New Zealand?
He played for New Zealand under 20s.
Under 21s.
Yeah.
Under 21s.
Yeah, I did.
So, and he just, had dual, and so he decided to go with England?
I can't remember the story. I know he spent some time in New Zealand and he played a lot of junior rugby there, and I think that qualified him. I don't know what his heritage is and whether he qualifies through ancestry to play for New Zealand, but quite possibly. But I know he played junior rugby for them. And similarly, in the same year that he made his debut for England, he got called up to the Lions as a young lighty in '93. On that tour to New Zealand, he got called up, and I think that just sort of confirmed the switch. No, he was always destined to play for England. I think England man through and through. Leicester Tiger legend.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, strong lock pairing. Can't fault you on Shawsey. He was awesome.
And I can't fault you on Mara.
No, strong front row.
So I went Jason Leonard.
Yeah.
And Phil Vickery as my prop combination.
Yeah.
And maybe a little controversial here. I went with Dylan Hartley.
Really? Okay, Dylan Hartley. I think that is a controversial one.
It's going to be. So strong leader. I think 30 tests as captain.
Yeah, he was Eddie Jones's first captain that he appointed.
Aggressive, but we always talk about how you need to be excellent at the set piece, and he was. So at hooker, he was excellent set pieces, but also 97 caps. It's a great showing for England.
He had a good innings and he was a captain.
Yeah.
We'll see what people are going to say in the comment section.
People are ready. The arrows ready.
You know what? 97 tests. It's weird. I still don't think he's the obvious choice. If you ask 9 out of 10 people, but I could be wrong. Let's see what people say. I went the same at prop. Full Vickery at tight head. Jason Leonard at loose head. Jason Leonard for many, many years, the top capped international player.
114 caps in the end.
Yeah, just a legend of the game.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about traditional rugby blokes, he's top of the list. He's awesome. Old school. Love Jason Leonard. At hooker, at his peak, in his prime, I think Jamie George was still their best. Okay. I know he's a recent pick. I think he's a shell of his former self currently. He's not playing as well as he should. I don't think he should be starting for England. But that 2016 to 2019 sort of, I think, that period, he was top of the game.
Yeah.
Steve Thompson was in with a shout. Luke Cowan-Dickie was in with a shout. Hartley was on my list.
For me, Steve Thompson, it was starting Steve Thompson or, as I say, Dylan Hartley. I couldn't decide who to throw on
Hartley's good, but he played rugby on the edge sometimes and gave away the odd yellow card, and discipline wasn't always on his side.
Yeah, that's the kind of probably the Kiwi grunt in him from before.
True.
He played a bit like Dane Coles played quite often. I really like that style in the hooker.
True. Yeah.
Bit of metal, bit of grunt, bit of but also
opposition.
But also strategically and tactically, really, really good. And come back to it, he did the set piece very well.
Yeah, he was solid player. Okay, so that's our starting 15.
That's our 15.
Who's going to come on in the second half and make an impact?
So
did you pick 23 this time?
One time. It was one time.
Just checking.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, what does your bench look like?
So for the bench, I went Joe Marler and Marco Vinopola as my two props.
Okay.
Joe Marler, just a great guy, great ambassador of the game.
He is a legend.
I know he's
He's
just
such a character.
He's just a character, and but like, take nothing away from him. 95 appearances. Unfortunately, no points within that 95, but just solid scrummager. That's what he was there to do. That's what he did. Won Lions tour, played for the Barbarians. Just scrummaging powerhouse. Superb defensive work rate as well. Like, he was quick around the park for someone with his skill set and his size, but for me, he just had to be in the team because he's like, you think of front rows in England over the last sort of 10 years, and he stands out because
He's always there.
Yeah, well, because of his character and style and the things he does off the field as much as he does on the field.
And he even riled up his own teammates. I'll never
Correct.
forget James Haskell grabbing him by the throat. That's the best.
1-0.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
Marco Vinopola, 79 appearances, 3 Lions tours, 13, 17, and 21. And so, again, just out and out prop,
Yeah.
scrummager, solid. And then hooker, I thought at his time, and more as an impact player, it could have been either one of these. I mean, we were talking about Steve Thompson, right? But I went with Jamie George.
Okay, so he made the bench.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Again, for all the reasons you said, 98 appearances, 75 points, a Lions tour, and captain as well.
He's one of the greats. He is one of the greats.
In my team, I've just picked captains upon captains upon captains. So it's
You
just
like doing that?
I
Like
do.
leadership
I
is a
like
big
leadership.
theme.
I like leadership on the field.
You like leadership like I like versatility.
Yeah.
Okay, that's your front row bench. What
Yeah.
does the rest of your bench look like?
So you mentioned his name, and we haven't spoken much about him, rather. But for my utility player, utility, I went with Martin Corey.
Okay.
So 64 appearances, 30 points, including 17 as captain. There's that captaincy.
Yeah, he was a captain, yeah.
2 Lions tours, but he can play 8th man, flanker, and lock. So off the bench, you've got that versatility. And then to back up that versatility, I couldn't decide between James Haskell or Lewis Moody, but I went with Moody in the end. Again, I wanted Haskell in the team because he's such a character and he's a good lad. But Lewis Moody had a better points return from his 71. So 71 appearances, 45 points, 1 Lions tour. I think they were neck and neck, both of them. I think Haskell's 70 and 20, so 70 appearances, 20 points. Lewis Moody, 71 appearances, 45 points. So
Both great players.
both great players, versatile, great on the flank. So that was my scrumming replacements. Who did you go?
No, give me the backs first. Finish your bench and then I'll
Okay,
give mine.
so Ben Youngs
Yeah.
gets a run on,
Yeah.
and again for what we said, 127 appearances, 100 points, 20 tries. That's a lot of tries.
Yeah, he was a great player.
that's up
I
there
liked him.
That's up there as some of the most for his position. And then Owen Farrell. So he'll come on for all those reasons you mentioned. 1,237 points.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, but again, can play fly off and center. Great kicking ability. Strong go forward. Like, solid in defense as well. Some of his tackling is a bit iffy, but we'll let it go. And clutch. So 48 times as captain of England, but if you want to send someone on in a big tournament and you've got a big kick to make,
you'd back him.
You'd back him.
You'd back him.
And then finally, on the wing option, I went with Johnny May.
Nice.
78 appearances, 180 points, 36 tries. Just
Yeah, I was debating on whether I did a tribute to Johnny May not too long ago on the channel, so it's up there. Go and check it out. I was debating on whether to include him. Because again, he doesn't get rated as highly as he should. He was a fantastic player. He did everything a wing should do. That try he scored against the All Blacks in 2014, he ran them to pieces. That's how a wing should run. Straight, hard, fast running winger. I love Johnny May.
Great
I
finisher.
think he was great.
I saw a pod this week that Joe Marler was being interviewed and was asked to pick his top 3 professionals that he'd ever played with. The other 2 escaped me, but the one that he talked about that comes to mind now is Johnny May. He says Johnny May, uber professional, from dawn to dusk, is just
High work rate.
Focused, dedicated, professional rugby player.
No, I like it.
And so he went in. That's my bench.
I like it. That's like a bench brew. Mine is not too dissimilar. So I also went Joe Marler at prop. Not just because he's a character. He was a bloody good player.
Solid.
There was a couple of times where he got showed up in the scrum, specifically against South Africa once or twice. But overall, he dominated. He was a very strong scrummager.
He's not as quick as Cheslin Colby either.
Yeah, I mean...
Maybe shouldn't have been trying to cover him on the wing.
No, but I mean, no prop would have stopped Cheslin there, so you can't really fault him.
Inside out.
Exactly. Maybe that'll, haunt him forever. But no, Joe Marler, fantastic player, defensively very strong. Like he put in some big hits. My other prop, I picked Andrew Sheridan.
Okay.
Dude, just pure scrummager. Like I always say, what does a tight end need to do? Just don't go back in the scrum. And Sheridan was one of those guys that would scrum you into the ground. So I get your arguments for Vunipola. He was a good player. But Marler on the loose head, Sheridan on tight head. I think that's a bomb squad coming on.
Yeah.
And then I went Steve Thompson at hooker on the bench. No place for Dylan Hartley, although, he didn't make my shortlist. But Steve Thompson, World Cup winner.
100%. Great player.
Achieved a hell of a lot in England, also Northampton boy. So, went with him. I picked Simon Shaw on the bench.
Fair.
Just because he's such a legend of the game. Absolute giant of the game.
Axe swinging Simon Shaw.
Yeah, absolutely. He could front up against anyone. Like I would put him up against someone like Bucky's, and he'd man up. He's physically was very imposing.
But that's why when we were picking the Boca team, you talk about having an enforcer in your team.
Yeah,
that's your man.
Yeah, I mean we bring him on with half an hour to go. He'll do the job. Then my loose head cover, I actually went with Tom Curry.
Okay.
He's one of those guys where again the day he retires, he's going to be spoken about at the same level as a Delalio or a Richard Hill. I think he's that good. Bongi Mbunambi controversy aside, I think he's a fantastic player. And that partnership with his Boot currently, they're doing bloody well. I think Curry is going to retire as one of the all-time greats.
He's got the potential to, I think, and he's a great player. Is he, like all-time greats, is he as good as, say, Richie McCaw?
Not yet. And he might never be, because, I mean, that's a very high standard to measure someone against, as against the Richie. I mean, no one, it's a once-in-a-generation player that's going to live up to that. But I think within the England setup, I think when he retires, and maybe I'm putting the cart in front of the horse, he's going to be better than Moody, Joe Worsley, Haskell, all of these guys that you mentioned.
Mate, it's a fair shot.
I think Curry's a better player.
That's a fair shot.
That's just my opinion.
Correct.
It's just my opinion. Okay, that's the forwards. I also went with a 5-3 split. Ben Youngs, backup scrummy. It's the obvious choice.
Yeah.
Touch and go between him and Danny Kerr.
Yeah.
But Ben Youngs, most capped England player of all time. I think
Youngie with the 20 tries as well.
Yeah, it was great. It was great around the fringes. Yeah. I remember that test against France in 2015 in the Six Nations. He scored twice, and he just ran the show that day. He was brilliant. My sort of versatile backup in the backline is Elliot Daly.
Because of this weekend?
No, it's got nothing to do with this weekend. I'm glad he's back in the side, to be honest.
He's a fantastic player.
But also, if you look at that Lions tour in 2017, and I know we're not picking a Lions team, but he could kick the long-range penalties. He could cover wing, fullback, centre. He brings a little bit of versatility because I went with a 5-3 bench. Underrated player. I think he's a legend of the English game. Maybe not. There might be better names. Who did I have down there? No, I think it's fine. I went with Daly. I liked him. He could cover a couple
Have the
of
courage
positions.
of your convictions, my
I'm
son.
sticking with it.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
challenge me all day long.
He's a great player. I really like fast, strong, and also that siege gun brute.
Yeah.
That long ranger. Clearly runs good lines, right?
He does, and his support play was always very good.
Yeah.
And I've got a longer memory than this weekend, Matt. It's got nothing to do with this weekend.
No, but fair play to him. It was a great moment this weekend when he scored that.
Yeah, it's good to see him back in the international scene. And then at my midfield backup is Will Greenwood. So I had to make space for Greenwood on the side. Again, there's a couple of guys that's unlucky to miss out, like a Tuilangi and Tyndall, but Greenwood, for all the reasons you said, had to be in the squad at a minimum. So, yeah, that's my team.
Fair,
Let's see what
dude.
the folks say.
Cheers.
Who's coaching this side?
That's
Like,
that's a good team, your side, my side.
So we both agree Martin Johnson's captain,
Captain.
right? That's also the obvious one. Who's coaching this outfit?
I thought the obvious head coach would be Sir Clive.
Yeah.
So I went Sir Clive, just the mastermind. He was the mastermind behind England's 2003 Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
He's a meticulous planner. He was innovative when he was coach at the time, innovative thinker, and he's an excellent man manager as well. And so I went with Clive, and then assistant coach, I went Andy Farrell.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Andy Farrell, brilliant.
Who's never coached England?
He's never coached England, but he is English, and he's played for England.
Does that qualify him?
It qualifies him, I think,
To
in my
pick an
mind.
Irish coach as assistant coach for England?
I don't. He's English by nationality, and we're picking the best English coaches. So I think. Look,
Okay, fair
not
enough.
Not to, again, put the cart before the horse, but I think it can be said that he'll be England coach one day. And so.
Do you think so?
Using my predictive crystal ball,
Interesting.
I think so. I think, and maybe. Maybe after his son's no longer playing for England.
You know what will be great is if Andy Farrell coaches Ireland and Ronan O'Gara coaches England.
I was thinking about that this
Can you
weekend.
imagine that?
Because
It's not impossible.
I was saying before, and we'll get to this after, I was saying before in another show, I thought Steve Borthwick's head was for the chop this weekend.
I think so too. I think it's still
It's still precarious. I mean, there are other ex-players. Toby Flood was saying, your man's on shaky ground. And the win this weekend would have just firmed up his position a little bit more, right? But, yeah, I think...
Well, I hope so, because I picked Steve Borthwick as my coach.
Oh, really?
No, I'm kidding.
I'd be like,
No, mate, no, we need to win. We need to win with this team.
I think his percentage win rate is around 47%.
Yeah,
something like
he's
that.
won 14 out of 29 tests. It's just not good enough.
Yeah, it's
just not good enough.
So, yeah, Andy Farrell, again, as an assistant coach, brilliant defensive strategist. He's led Ireland to Grand Slam victories.
You're going to get stick. I'm calling it early.
I don't care.
It early.
Bring it on. I think
I'm calling it early.
a Clive Woodward, Andy Farrell coaching setup would be unbelievable.
You love picking two head coaches and as one head coach as assistant coach. I went Sir Clive. Pains me to admit it, but he is the best coach that they've ever had. If you think where they were in '97 when he took the reins and where they ended in 2003, he built that team, and he grew them. And they won the World Cup, and you can't. We spoke about this. That's the measure of a successful coach. If you win the World Cup, you can't look past that. That's the ultimate.
You have that
trophy,
forever,
right?
Yeah. He has made some questionable sort of gaffe statements in the media since. I think he's got an article.
That's why it pained me to pick him.
I think he writes for the Times or something like that. He's got an article that he produces, and some of the things he says sometimes you're like, you're dreaming, mate.
Yeah, it's a good thing that he coached 20 years ago.
Correct.
But I think seems a little bit out of touch.
But I think for the time, for what they achieved, and for the fact that he was able to strategize that win, he deserves his place.
Yeah, and as his assistant coach, I went with his assistant coach in Andy Robinson.
Yeah, fair enough.
So Andy Robinson wasn't great when he took over the head coaching reins. Like that team was past their prime. He only lasted 2 seasons. But as assistant coach, that combination with Clive Woodward, I think, if we talk about combos, they just got the best out of that team. And I didn't want to pick Eddie Jones. So I didn't want to pick Stuart Lancaster. I don't think Martin Johnson was a good coach. Brian Ashton, there was really nobody else.
Mate, you don't have to justify
So I stuck with that Woodward-Robinson combo.
Fair enough. I mean, you could have gone looking internationally to see other coaches like I did, but hey,
we'll see who gets more stick in the comments, me or you.
Bring it on.
Based on the assistant coach.
Nice one, brother.
Right.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that is it. That's our greatest England side of the last 30 years of the professional era. Let us know what you think. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. Go and follow us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. We're on all the social medias.
All the socials.
Thanks for joining us. This was a lot of fun. We're going to do a second show, which we'll post later in the week. But for now, cheers, Matt.
Yeah, cheers, bro.
And we'll do this again next week. Next week, we will do the greatest French team of the professional era. Allez les Bleus.
Allez les Bleus. It's going to be fun. Cheers,
That's
brother.
what we're doing next week. Cheers.
Go well.